wasn't too difficult for you to get in. Thank you very much for joining us to go through job advert improvement today. We are going to be looking at how to analyze your job advert data, then how to interpret that so that you can make some improvements so that you rank higher and also get more engagement for your job adverts. So my name's James Digby. I am the MD of Bright, and we help educational organisations and businesses to get the most from their recruitment and marketing budgets. So we place about 5,000 job adverts each year. So we're basing a lot of this on the data that we have from those job adverts and the improvements that we've been able to trial over 23, 24 years of supporting those educational organisations and businesses with getting the most from their recruitment media. Do feel free to interrupt me as we go along. So there is a chat window in the bottom right hand corner. There will be time at the end. I always leave plenty of time for questions at the end, but you may find it easier to interrupt on a particular slide, so do feel free to do so. So we're going to start off by going through a little bit about benchmarking, understanding the data that you have from your job adverts. We'll then talk a little bit about the solutions and the tips that we have for fixing some of those things that the data maybe is indicated as are wrong with your job adverts. We'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn and how you could be using LinkedIn to get the right job title. We'll talk a little bit about career motivators and how they can be weaved into your job adverts. And then finally, we will talk a little bit about diversity and inclusion. So we do have some resources for you, including a job advert template. So feel free to go to our website after this session and download that template. It might just make things a little bit easier. As I say, interrupt as we go along. I'm very happy to answer questions as we go along. Very happy to talk about specific examples. So you have a job title or a job advert that you'd like to talk about. Be very happy to talk about that at the relevant section in the presentation. We're going to send out the recording as well so that you can jump to the relevant bits, so that if you're not writing a job advert at the moment or improving a job advert at the moment, you can come back to that. And then if you would like to have a session with either myself or one of my colleagues, feel free to come back to us on the email when we send out the recording to book in a free consultation. So let's start by looking at your recruitment adverts data. So a lot of people and a lot of agencies will be looking at your advert performance for recruitment on your click-through rate, so your percentage conversion rate. That's sometimes a useful tool to be able to see whether you're performing in line with how other people's jobs adverts are performing. But for the vast majority of time, you should really be looking at your job advert views and your apply clicks. And we know from our own experience that to get enough brand reach and to get enough apply clicks, so that's people clicking to apply, it's not necessarily those people converting into applicants, but to get enough apply clicks, you should be looking at between 100 to 150 views and between 12 to 22 apply clicks. Those conversions from wherever you direct those people to will vary in terms of percentages. Typically for the education sector, the information you're advertising on a job board or a digital platform is going to be very, very similar to the information that you have on your actual own website. So we do see the drop-off rate as quite low. The only time where that's not the case is where you're directing people from other sectors. So maybe you're using something like CV Library or a LinkedIn campaign, and you're directing people from other sectors to your job advert. So maybe it's an IT technician role, for example. And we know that the application forms for the education sector, the ones that you have to use as part of safer recruitment, we know that they can put people off and they can impact your ability to convert people. So this is really what you should be aiming for. You may well be falling short in terms of number of views and the number of apply clicks that you get, but in the vast majority of cases, it's a case of you either having a high number of views and a low number of apply clicks, or a low number of views and a high number of apply clicks. So this is really how you can analyze your job advert data. You could maybe look at it for support roles, leadership roles, and academic roles, do an average of the last 12 months, and see where you fall within this. Are you getting that the number that you need in terms of views, so 100 to 150 views? Are you getting between 12 and 22 apply clicks? So if you've got a high number of views and a low number of apply clicks, there are a number of reasons for that, but the most common areas that we see are the fact that you have an incorrect job title, in terms of you've picked the job title that doesn't reflect the actual job. So, for example, you might be looking for a HR coordinator, but they might actually be doing a lot of recruitment work, and that might be the focus for their job. So in that case, lots of people who are HR coordinators might be clicking on the job. It might sound really interesting, but when they go through to the content, they don't go on to apply because the job description, the information about the role, doesn't reflect what they thought it would. The SEO elements might be wrong. So SEO is search engine optimization. It's how optimized your content is to match the search terms. So any job board, but TES, for example, but any job board is going to have some form of ranking for job advert content. And they're typically trying to replicate the way that somebody searches for content. So if you are searching for part-time maths teacher, if you've got the word part-time repeated a number of times throughout your job advert, you're going to rank higher for that, because it's analyzing your information and seeing, okay, they're talking about a part-time role. The job title is for the job title that the person's searching for, and therefore we're going to show this content. It could be low salary, so people might be interested in the job advert, but you may well not have benchmarked the salary correctly. So, or you may be having to offer lower because of salary bands, for example. So you might be finding lots of people looking through because they're interested in the job, but when they see the salary, they don't then go on to apply. And the final bit, 2 bits, and I apologise, incorrect job titles repeated twice, but it is the most important one. So I'll pretend that's why it's there. But the lack of engaging content is quite often the problem here. So you're not talking about things that are engaging for people, and you quite often see this with things like benefits, for example. People want to know, what's the benefit of working for you as a business or organization or school. They don't want to know that as a teacher they're going to get a teacher's pension scheme, because they're perhaps going to be expecting that. They're going to want to know what the culture's like, what the values like within that organization. And in real terms, that's about, and we'll come on to this in terms of motivators later, but that's about what kind of things are they having problems with at the moment that your job and your organization and business will solve. So we'll talk about this in a bit more detail, but it's typically things like relationships. So are the people they're going to be working with very helpful? Is it a very bureaucratic environment? Are there lots of opportunities to progress their career, and so on and so forth? If you don't have those things, then it's very difficult to stand out for the crowd. So you get lots of people viewing your job, but then you can't convert them because your content isn't relevant and it isn't engaging enough for them. So what are the reasons for having a low number of views but a high number of apply clicks? So there are positive reasons here. It doesn't always have to be negative. So there are some positives. It might just be a niche job title. So the people that do search it are far and few between. So you have a low number of views, but because it is niche and because it doesn't match what they're searching for, you're going to get a high number of apply clicks, because you're going to convert a good number of the people that view that job advert into an applicant. In terms of the SEO, it's always going to be relevant. So when you've got a high number of views and no apply clicks, you could be ranking really high, but for the wrong thing. So people seeing your job advert, viewing it, but they're not applying. If you've got poor SEO, you're just not going to be ranking high enough. So it's important to optimize your job so that you focus on the job title and the content being relevant to the job and the key terms that people are searching for. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the solutions and tips element so that you know what that means in reality. There might just be a lot of competition. So the people that do view your job, they've waded through lots of adverts, and therefore you've got a good chance of converting them to an apply click, but you're getting a low number of views because people are only viewing a handful of jobs and they're not going to view 10, 20 different job adverts. So the chances are you're not necessarily being shown to the right people. And then finally, it could be weak employer brands, sadly. So it could be that in the search results, people associate you with a particular reputation, they associate you with something that's negative or poor salary or whatever it might be. And therefore, when they see you in the search results, they don't actually click through. But those that do, you convince them or they're unaware of that reputation. So you're able to attract them to click apply. And then when you have low views and low apply clicks, you've got to kind of balance this out so that you're making improvements in terms of increasing the views, but you're also still engaging enough to maintain or increase your number of apply clicks for your job adverts. Does anybody have any questions about that at all? Perfect. So, the actual solutions to these different areas come from a number of different issues that we see people having. So a lack of quality data. So if you partner with us at the moment, or you were to partner us in the future, we're able to provide you with data on your job adverts. If you don't do that, you can get that from your current suppliers. So do request it. Do review the number of views and apply clicks that you get. It should be trackable for everybody. So where some people kind of drag their feet in providing you with that information, do push for it because it is really valuable information. It could just be that your SEO, your search engine optimization, isn't great for your job advert. So make sure your job title is repeated throughout the advert at least 3 times. Consider the keywords that people are searching for and get the job title correct. So an example we've got in the next box is of HR coordinator and HR advisor. Work out, and we can talk through LinkedIn in a minute, but work out, is your job a HR coordinator type job, or is it a HR advisor? And the interesting thing is different sectors use these terms interchangeably sometimes, and different sectors use this and it's very fixed, and the HR coordinator is always X, Y, and Z, and the HR advisor is always this, 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 and this. So it is really important that you consider those job titles. And again, if you currently work with us, do feel free to ask us for some help on those job titles. And if you don't currently work with us, feel free to ask as well. Sometimes the job title's too long as well. Don't have things like maternity leave at the end of it. Don't have things like part-time and salary and so on and so forth next to it, because people aren't searching for those terms. So, and this is really, really important. If you're putting in a maths teacher job, leave it as maths teacher and then detail in the other fields that the job is part-time. Don't put maths teacher part-time because you'll typically rank lower than those people that have just put maths teacher as their job title. The advert length is really important. Do aim for about 500 words. And if you've got too much information to put into your job advert, hyperlink through to a page on your website. So for example, benefits, you could be highlighting the key benefits and then linking through to those benefits that are on your website. When you're listing benefits, put things that are relevant to people and make sure that they're the high level benefits. So don't have lots of jumping about. So one moment you're talking about the fact that you invest heavily in CPD, the next moment you're offering them free tea and coffee, the next moment you're offering them a pension scheme. Think about what people for that job role are going to be interested in, and highlight those really high level ones that are really important to people. The opening paragraph needs to be about the job advert. A, that's really important for ranking, but B, the reason it's important for ranking is because research shows that people rule themselves in or out of the process by starting from top, working their way through. And when they're doing that, they want to know about the the job role first, the team and department second, then they want to know about the organisation or the school, and if you're part of a trust or a bigger organisation, they then want to know about that higher level part of it. Low salary can be a bit of a problem, but it is difficult in the education sector because you can be a little bit fixed with what you've got. So do consider benchmarking. Use your current marketing agency or a benchmarking partner, or do your own research to find out where your salary fits. It's really important that you do that, even if you already got an idea of whether it's particularly low or particularly high, just because sometimes these things change, and it might surprise you when you look at the results. Does anybody have any questions about either of these pages of solutions and tips? Perfect. So we talked quite a bit about the importance of getting a job title correct. So I'm just going to show you how we use LinkedIn to be able to help people pick the right job title. Hopefully people can see my screen. Is it possible for anybody to just confirm if you can? Perfect, brilliant, great. So let's use the example of HR advisor. Is quite a common one for us to get asked about. So for HR advisor, I can click see people results. So at the top here, I'm searching for it as a keyword. So I can see people who have used this at any point in their LinkedIn profile, not just their current job title. And then I can go to United Kingdom because we want to know that it's a job title being used in our local area. And then in industry, you're going to use, if you're a school, you're going to use primary and secondary education. If you're an education organization, you're either going to use education or higher education, if you're higher education, or administration programs. But let's pretend that we are a school. So what I'm now able to see is that there are 760 people using the title HR advisor within primary and secondary education. And I can go through these profiles and I can see what kind of work those people did. Are they coming from the right background for me? Are they doing the right things? Different people are going to have different levels of information in there, but in general, I'll get a feeling of what they're doing. So I can then put in HR administrator, and I can see that there are a lot more people using that title, and I can go through and I can see how these people that have used this title, what kind of jobs are they doing. So sometimes there are quirks. So for example, this person's gone from a HR manager to a HR administrator. So I would typically go through a number of different job roles and I would make sure it's matching with what I want. It's also helpful just to know that quantity, to know there's a greater number of people using the title HR administrator. And the third job title that people often ask about are coordinators. So I can put this in too. So the HR administrators, as you may well know, are going to be less experienced, and then HR coordinator and HR advisor. Typically it goes coordinator and then advisor, but lots of different organizations and schools and businesses, they use HR advisor and HR coordinator interchangeably. So you can have a look at this and see which job titles are most relevant and which has the biggest target audience. Does anybody have any questions about that? Hopefully that's a useful way for you to prove to people, externally you should be using this job title. I think it's also worth mentioning that you can be picking a job title externally that is different to the one on your own website, so that when people click through, they can see it's still the same job, but you'll have an internal job title and an external job title. It does not have to be the same. So if you've got an internal name for a job title, Don't worry about the fact that it doesn't make sense externally. Externally on things like Tears, eTeach, CV Library, these different job boards, LinkedIn, wherever it might be, advertise it with the job title that makes sense for the sector you're looking to attract people from. If it's sector non-sector specific, you can use LinkedIn, remove those filters for industry, and it will give you an idea of what do other sectors call this particular job title. Do small businesses still call the IT person an IT technician or IT manager? How does it differ if we're looking to attract people from the education sector compared to those other sectors that are out there? A lot of people, when we are talking about job advert writing, a lot of people have been asking about AI. So, should you be using AI to write job adverts? In short, the research at the moment shows that it's very difficult to know whether the quality of those adverts is better when they're written by AI or humans. But in general, it does seem to be a lot better when it's written by a human because you can write it in a more engaging way. The reason that you might be kind of struggling to work out, or why the sector might be struggling to work out whether AI is useful, is just simply because quite often people write poor quality job adverts, they write very short job adverts, or they take content from job descriptions and they just paste it into their advert. But one of the things that I do think is really important is that the level of bias with AI written content increases quite significantly compared to freshly made content by humans, and therefore, if you're interested in diversity and inclusion and you're keen to be an inclusive employer, you would probably be best avoiding AI, at least for the time being, but potentially for a very long period of time until they can get over the fact that they're basing it on adverts that might have bias in them, and therefore they're typically ruling people out relative to those human written adverts. I've suggested a few different things that you could be adding into your adverts to make them more engaging, but one of the key things, and I appreciate that you can't see the necessarily the detail of this diagram, but one of the key things that I think you need to be getting across are things that are pain points for people. So we have done a lot of research on something called the employer value proposition for a number of clients, and that employer value proposition is the sales pitch to people. Basically, what's relevant for people looking for a job that would be suitable for those organizations, businesses, and schools. And what was really interesting about collating the entirety of the data from those sessions is that the middle two bar graphs are showing salary and benefits as motivators. The line, the second line to the top, is a total score of 250. Anything above that shows a very high level of interest in a particular area, and anything below that shows that people find it relevant, but it's not something they're likely to switch jobs for if they're a passive candidate. So we know that salary benefits, working in a modern workplace, and the school's service and offerings and a business's offerings are particularly low motivators for people compared to other things. And those top three things are the opportunity to learn new things, the ability to contribute new ideas, and the relationship that they have to their colleagues. So there are two areas there: relationship with their colleagues who are their peers, but also the relationship with their colleagues who are their line managers. So it's really important for people that they have the opportunity to progress themselves. It's really important that people have the opportunity to contribute new ideas. It's really important that people have the opportunity to have strong relationships with people around them and feel supported by those people. And these are the things that are often missing from job adverts. People often talk about benefits from the point of view of physical benefits or pay or reward in some way. But actually, we know from the data that people are more motivated and more likely to move jobs for things that are difficult for them on a daily basis. And they're typically those relationships with colleagues. They're typically the fact that people don't listen to their ideas. They're typically the fact that they don't have the opportunity to learn new things. Does anybody have any questions about this data set? Perfect. So when we're talking about this diagram, touched a little bit on diversity and inclusion there. Although it's very difficult to write a fully inclusive job advert by as a human rather than using AI. One thing that you can do to give yourself a healthy boost in terms of reducing any bias would be to use something called a gender decoder. So a gender decoder looks at a ridiculous number of job adverts. I've seen ones that have used hundreds of millions of job adverts from around the world, and it looks at the equal opportunities information behind them, and it uses lots of advanced technology to basically say where these words are being used, you typically skew the applicant numbers towards males or females. So this is data from just one of those gender decoders, and what it was showing is that female applicants are typically more attracted to the words on the red side, and males were typically attracted to the words on the green side, the blue side. So I think that it's very interesting for a start, but I think that what a lot of the data shows is that females typically rule themselves out of the process. So they're going for a job advert, and they're looking for reasons not to apply, whereas males seem to be perhaps in general, this isn't of course applying to everybody, but in general, they typically look for to go through the advert, and they tend to apply for things that they're not necessarily suitable for. And so by being aware of this and being aware that there are tools out there to help you, you don't have to solve this problem yourself. You're a good portion of the way there. And you can make your job adverts more neutral in this area. You can do this for a range of different areas of diversity. You can do it for ethnicity, you can do it for neurodiversity, but the general rule of thumb for all of these things would be that the clearer your job advert is, the easier it is for people to rule themselves in and out with bullet points, the better it is for everybody, no matter their background, whether they're neurodiverse, whether they're part of an ethnic background, whether they're a different socioeconomic group to your current staff members. The clearer your job advert is, the better it is in terms of attracting those people. In terms of the actual kind of process in improving your job adverts, do provide a lot of opportunities to get feedback from those candidates, not just on your recruitment process, but also on your ability to provide information during the job advert stage that's relevant to them. So if people are constantly bringing up lots of different things, then make sure that you're giving them the opportunity to feedback that they wish they'd known that earlier on in the process. And that will help you to improve your job adverts. It will help you to improve your recruitment experience, and it should also allow you to create a question and answer session section of your website, for example, so people can get that information as early on as possible. So, does anybody have any questions about job advert writing or any particular case studies that I might be able to help with? Perfect. So we will send out the recording of the session. If you have a job advert that you'd like some help with, do feel free to come back to us on that. And we'd be very happy to help. If you have a particular job advert you're struggling with at the moment, send it across and we will look for some areas to improve. Hopefully this has been really helpful. Hopefully you're able to access your data and things, but if you do get stuck, do let us know. And if you get your data from your suppliers and you're struggling to interpret it, feel free to send it over and we'll be very happy to go through it with you. But thank you very much for attending.